All right, so since we're looking at money, I thought it'd be fun to take a look at some historical forms of money that have actually been used throughout history. And you'll see that for the most part, almost anything imaginable could be used as a form of money if everybody is agreeable to it. So why don't we start with some of the stranger ones. Here's just a brief overview of what we're going to see in this presentation, and you can see these do not look like money at all, but you'll see that many different countries, many different people have used these as forms of money over time. Here you can see that we have everything from ancient Roman coins all the way up to euros. So let's start with shell money. Now, in some islands in the Pacific, shells have been used as a form of money. These are also known as cowrie shells, and these were used in Africa, Australia, and Asia throughout the 19th century. They were also used in China and India in earlier centuries. Now, of course, you can see where this could run into trouble. How do we control the supply of money in a case like this? The number of shells on the beach basically represents the money supply. And so if we keep discovering new shells, that could end up leading to an expansion of the money supply and price inflation. Now, tea bricks, this is something unusual, although it may be hard to see. There's a pattern on here. This is basically a brick of tea that's been tightly condensed so that it can be sold as a single unit. And these were used as money in China, Tibet, Mongolia, and Central Asia during the 19th century. Now, bottle caps briefly were used as money in Cameroon in 2005. Now, clearly this experiment didn't work, otherwise they would still be using them, but the bottle caps have the virtue of being certainly very colorful and readily identifiable. The problem is, again, how do you control the supply of the bottle caps in your country? Now, these guitar coins, which look extremely cool, were used in Somalia, but they were always meant to be commemorative coins. They weren't really intended for circulation, and you can see why. Who would spend one of these if they got their hands on it? Okay. Now, occasionally you run into religious coins. Now, here you have a coin where there's actually a little bit of holy water in the coin itself. This was circulated in the country of Palau, which is in the Pacific Ocean. The silver dollar was issued in 2007, and it actually contains holy water from Lourdes, France. Squirrel pelts, well, you can probably imagine this would have been used as money in very cold countries, and you would be right, they were used as a form of money in Russia during the Middle Ages. Wooden money. Now, throughout history, there have been cases where countries have had severe shortages of metals to make coins and possibly even paper to make notes, and so they have to resort to other things. And so this very unusual wooden note appeared in Germany after World War I because of the severe shortages of metal that resulted from losing World War I. Okay, now these Kissy coins are used in Africa, and what's interesting about these is they're just iron, and they have these ends. Apparently, the ends are the most valuable part of the coin, because if they snap off, the coins are reduced a great deal in value. So obviously, you want to be careful with them. Now, the quarter tiara, this is a coin which is believed to be the smallest coin that ever circulated, and you can get an idea by looking at this Roosevelt dime. That's a small coin. The quarter tiara, made of silver, was issued in Vijayanagar. This was an empire in southern India, lasting from the 14th to the 16th century. This is the smallest known coin in history. Now, salt, believe it or not, has been used as money. Now, salt has the advantage that it's it doesn't perish or it doesn't spoil, and there have been points in history where salt was extremely hard to acquire. It was also very readily used as a form of preserving food before electricity was invented. As a matter of fact, the word salary is actually derived from the word salt because Roman soldiers were literally paid in salt during the days of the Roman Empire. Now, these are very interesting because they're still being used even to this day as money on the island of Yap, which is in the South Pacific, in part of a region which is known as Micronesia. And although it's hard to tell by looking at this picture, these stones, at least the large stone, is actually taller than a person would be. Now, how in the world do they use this as money? Well, they basically don't move the wheels around. They don't actually bring them to the store, for example. Everyone just keeps track of who owns which one, and the system works very well on the island. As a matter of fact, at one point in time, there was a huge storm, and one of the stones actually washed away into the ocean. And so, even though nobody can actually see the stone anymore, the fact that it's down there and everyone agrees to it means that it can continue to be used as a form of money. Okay, now we're going to switch our attention to some interesting forms of U.S. currency that have circulated throughout our history. We'll start with a very interesting question. So far, only one woman has appeared on U.S. notes. Who is she? Now, this does not count coins. We know that Susan B. Anthony and Sacagawea were on coins, but not notes. Okay, so let's remember this question as we go along. First of all, in the early days of the United States, actually in the colonial days, printing money basically meant you were printing paper with printing presses, and it wasn't terribly difficult to counterfeit these types of notes. So they got so desperate that these notes actually say on there, "To counterfeit is death." Right? They were serious about this. Okay, so now eventually we got rid of that slogan and replaced it with "In God We Trust." Now, the largest denomination note we've ever seen in the United States is a $100,000 bill. It was published or issued in the 30s, and you can see that Woodrow Wilson's picture is on this $100,000 bill. And not only is it worth a lot of money, but you can see it's a gold certificate, which means that anytime you chose, you could take this note to a bank and ask for $100,000 worth of gold. In fact, if you look at it carefully, you'll see that it says the United States of America, $100,000 in gold, payable to bearer on demand as authorized by law. So in other words, this note was really nothing more than a certificate that represented a deposit of $100,000 worth of gold in one of the government's banks. Now, of course, today, paper money is not backed by gold. It's backed by confidence in the U.S. government. But at this point in time, this was really nothing but a certificate that represented the fact that there was gold out there somewhere and you could go get it if you wanted it. All right, now, here's the answer to our trivia question. Martha Washington appeared on the $1 bill very briefly during the Civil War, and since then there have been no more women on U.S. notes. And you'll notice this one is a silver dollar, which means that anytime you chose, you could take this to the bank and trade it in for a dollar worth of silver. It even says right here, this certifies that there has been deposited in the Treasury of the United States $1 silver dollar. All right. Now, there once upon a time was a 3-cent bill during the Civil War. Now, you might wonder why 3 cents? Well, at this point in time, there was precious little metal available for making coins. And so they resorted to producing paper money, which is worth fractional amounts of a dollar. And why 3 cents, you might ask? Well, at this point in time, 3 cents was the price of a first-class postage stamp, and so it made sense to have a 3-cent bill. This is, by the way, the smallest note that we've ever had. And again, the whole point of this is that there wasn't enough gold and silver to go around, so this is what the government decided to do. Now, the other extreme, as far as coins go, the largest denomination coin ever minted in the United States is a $20 gold coin. There were several different designs. This is one of the more famous ones. This coin has been consistently voted the most beautiful coin ever minted in the United States. And so you can see why. And at the other extreme, we've had a 1/2 cent coin, which of course no longer circulates. This is the smallest coin that we've ever seen in the United States. So I hope you enjoyed that survey of unusual forms of notes and coins, because I sure have. And hopefully this will inspire you to do some of your own research about forms of notes and coins throughout world history.